Hi everybody and welcome to Module 1. This first module I will be doing my food, rant or rave, and unfortunately it is a rant. Probably about 3 years ago my husband and I went to a restaurant called Seba in Cranberry Township. It's out Route 228. I think it's heading towards Adams Township. So Pan and I went there for dinner one night, and it's a little on the pricey side, so it wasn't something that we normally do. We went in, the hostess greeted us. It was very nice, very friendly, and took us to our table. Well, when we got to our table, the server had approached the table, and he was a younger gentleman. His uniform wasn't very pressed. It wasn't very neat or anything like that, but I figured, hey, he's learning, he's young. So he went ahead and started taking our order, and I had ordered a glass of wine, but he never asked me the brand that I wanted. My husband asked what kind of beers they had on draft, and he wasn't sure of, so he had to go over to the bar to find out what it was and come back. So unfortunately, the young man was very uneducated when it came to his job and duties as a server. So we went ahead and ordered our meal, and we had an appetizer, a salad, and then we were both having our entrees. We had to kind of prompt him as to what to ask us. I had ordered a filet, and he just wrote down filet and never asked me how I wanted it cooked. And I told him, I said, oh, by the way, I wanted my filet medium rare. So he takes our order, left, and we were sitting there, and both of us had a drink, and then the young man came up and gave us our salads. Well, something that we'll be learning in Food and Beverage 1 is a sequence of service, and your appetizers should come before your salads. So we were sitting there and our salads came out, and I'm thinking, well, maybe they have a different way of doing things here. And then not even 2 minutes later, our appetizer came out. So we're sitting there with our salads and our appetizer, and then he just went ahead and took away our salads while we were still trying to eat our salads as well as our appetizer, never letting us finish. So I looked at it, they were both $8 salads, and I only ate about $3 of my 8. Kind of ticked off about it, but I got over it. I'm really not one to complain. So our entrees came, and my husband did have a pasta dish, and I had gotten my filet, and I also had risotto that came with my filet. I went to cut into the filet, and it was pretty much cooked all the way through, and I had ordered it medium rare. And when I cut into it, it was more medium well done. And I was thinking to myself, oh, Nance, just eat it. You'll be okay. But then I thought to myself, you know what? This was $25 just for this entree. So I'm going to say something to the server about it. So the server came over and I said, you know, I ordered this and it didn't come out medium rare. And he said, oh, I'm sorry, I'll go back. Well, he went back to the kitchen, and the kitchen was an open kitchen, so you could see everything that was going on inside of the kitchen. He took it back to the chef who was expediting, and the chef just kind of shook his head and waited for a little bit and came back out. Well, by the time the filet had come back out, my risotto was cold, and my husband was halfway through his entree. Went to cut back into the steak, and it was overcooked once again. I couldn't believe it at this point. Not even was it overcooked, but the server had never brought us our second round of drinks. So the server came back over, and I told him again, and he said, oh, I'm sorry. So he takes my plate right back to the kitchen, and he's standing there in the kitchen with the chef. They both turn around to look at us, and they're pointing like this to us at our table. Well, needless to say, my husband is a chef and wasn't very appreciative of the way that they were acting as they were talking about us, obviously. So I kind of had to calm him down a little bit and say, honey, don't worry. Because he was about to go and ask them what the problem they had with me sending back my food. Filet comes out a third time. Well, at this point, my husband's finished with his meal. Still no beverages at the table. Brings the filet back, and it's still overcooked. At this point, I'm done. I've had enough. They'd taken my salad away from me when I was still eating it. The appetizer was a small portion, so I hardly had any food there. And I didn't even have a glass of wine at this point. So he came back over. I cut into it. It's well done. I said, you've got to be kidding me at this point. So the server came over, asked if everything was all right. I said, no, I've been ordering this I said, I wanted it medium rare. He said, oh, I thought you wanted it medium well. I said, why would I keep sending back a piece of meat that was overcooked if I wanted it medium well? So unfortunately, he didn't know what he was doing. He really didn't care, and he brought us our bill with everything on it still. So at this point, I decided, okay, I need to ask for a manager. About 15 minutes after I asked to see a manager finally came to the table. And she, unfortunately, was as green as the server was. She came over to the table and asked me, well, what do you want me to do? I said, well, what do you think you should do? And she said, well, you did eat some of your salad and you did eat the appetizer. And I said, no, we're not paying for anything this evening. I said, you're going to have to comp this entire check because the entire meal was ruined. And now we're going to leave here and I'm going to go somewhere else to eat tonight. So she apologized. She said, you're absolutely right. We'll take care of the bill. So the bill was about $80. We were sitting there thinking, okay, she just left with no closure or anything like that, no apology, no, well, I hope you join us again, or here's a gift card next time you come to try to get us to come back into the restaurant. So then the server came over and dropped the check off. Well, at this point, we're thinking to ourselves, well, she just said she was comping the meal, so why is the server bringing us the check? So we sat there for another 10 minutes, and the server never came back to the table. The manager never came back to the table. So we went ahead and took the check up to the hostess station and asked for the manager. Now, I'm one, I always tip. The young man never got tipped, and I gave the check back to the manager. And when we left, we actually went to Mad Max down the road, and I actually had my nice fungi burrito down there. But it was kind of funny because I wrote a letter to the restaurant, so they were aware of the whole debacle that we had that evening, and we never heard anything back from them. So unfortunately, that was the last time we were at that restaurant 3 years ago. And the other unfortunate thing is every time I teach this class, I talk about Seba Restaurant in Cranberry Township and how poor of an experience it was. So that's why you need to always make sure that when your guests leave the restaurant, they leave with a smile on their face so they're not talking about it 3 years later. That's the first Rant and Rave.